The fact that's what you're recording is actually quite scary to me. Focus on me. Yeah, you are. Okay. Hey guys, how are we all doing? Hey, it's Stuart. Welcome back to my channel and my challenge. If you're new here, this is a space where I recap on the 75 hard. You know what I found underneath and something that I don't expect. And this is about accountability for me, and it's about healing for me. And if you're not new here, thank you for joining me on this turbulent, very, very turbulent journey. 75. Some people will say 80, some people will say 85, some people will say only 70. This is my 75. Sorry, this is my 75 microphone. I'm really tired of pointing out just highlights of my life over the last while, and I hope this shows, me pointing out substance and growth in my mindset, and me documenting steps on this journey for my own propriety. It's really helped me. It's been an emotional roller coaster. Looking back now, on the days I really wanted to quit, and I've been very emotional recently. And the small wins felt massive, and the massive setbacks that taught me a lot more than I think the success would have. Where can I go? Before I jump in, I'm going to do the whole social thing. Drop a comment, like, comment, subscribe. Let this be a checkpoint, where you're saying, yeah, I'm in. About progression, about growth in ourselves. But deep breath. Okay. When I start this challenge again, and I do mean again, because I've reset this countless times over the last year and a half. I was really trying to prove myself now this time that I could finish something, that I could get back to that man that I used to be. And it wasn't about, just trying to get diced and shredded, or trying to, develop the physique. It was about developing that mindset external to my own belief and confronting that person that I am and becoming that person who I wanted to move into. I hope that makes sense. Probably doesn't. I wanted to be the realer version of myself that I'd lost over the last while. And that's where the difficulty really lay, especially in the first 5 attempts. Because that person doesn't wake up at 3 a.m. over anxiety, and they don't go to bed at 3 a.m. because of anxiety, and they're not always questioning, can we be better, even though we know we are enough right now. And I would always degrade myself about that. I'm never going to be good enough. I'm not good enough right now. I'm such an imposter. I don't deserve to be in this space with these people. And I always want to be that person who bends and flexes, but doesn't break themselves to fit into a space. And I really tried to prove to myself this time that I could grow, and I could not demoralize myself and just become the person I want without punishment, a stronger version of myself, of who I am now, right now. So here's me breaking it down. I mean, there is an analysis, that there is sustainable transformation, and it's not about just motivation and drive to push you forward. It's about this thing called self-concept, and that really struck me. I can't even remember where I read this, but it's about when you don't change the identity behind the action, the change will not stick. And to me, that means if I don't believe that I'm the kind of man who can honor his word, his every workout, every intention truthfully, it's all just for surface level. It's all just for content. It's just for social media. It's just for the highlights of my life. And it's insidious. And I tried to practice on social media so much, but it was very performative. And I don't want to be one of those people. And I realized I was falling into it. And it wasn't my purpose. And I didn't like who I saw in the mirror, who I was becoming 6 months ago, 4 months ago, last year, definitely not last year. And that's heavy, because in truth, I lost so much of myself in terms of my integrity. And I know we've talked about integrity and what I want in terms of validation in myself and my integrity in myself. And when I strip it down, I lost being a whole person. And I was being congruent, and I wasn't being congruent, should I say. Because how often do we separate ourselves into an external projection and the internal experience? And by that I mean the more difference there is between those two, the more anxiety and depression we're going to feel in ourselves. When we're being a persona online, I talked about how I've tried to placate to all the masses, have everyone like me in my life, to be accepted by everyone, and how that was destroying me internally. And it hit me like a train, because I was living online and focused and motivated, but I was still spiraling and still so confused and emotionally bloated in myself, because I didn't know which way I wanted to go, where I was being pulled. And this is what's called cognitive dissonance. And it's like where you contradict your own values by what you're doing. And every time like you'd hit snooze and you didn't want to do that, every time I was breaking my promise to myself, I was reinforcing this feedback loop of shame of how far I was actually drowning, how far I was in that pit. Because I was so motivated. I was so motivated in myself to be a better person and putting up all this affirmations and pieces online, but I was really, really struggling. So for like the first few days of this 75, it wasn't hard. The workouts weren't hard. Or read or listen to that had nothing to do with fiction, like getting productive, staying on a healthy diet, no alcohol, like drinking all my water. What I struggled with was dealing with my internal bankruptcy and having to start rebuild myself brick by brick, moment by moment, because I had to say, you can't pull from this rotten person that you were. On the outside, I might look good, but on the inside, I was so bad. And if I was getting real, like I failed this challenge multiple times. I will say it again, I messed up constantly. Didn't take every box one day, you know. I slipped, I took the choice, and it wasn't even something dramatic. It might have been something small. And there was no big, massive breakdown in life, but it was me right there and then choosing not to catch myself and not to honor myself, or I chose to ignore it. But it was enough to count as a fail, and the old me would have seen that as the beginning of the end. I was spiraling, that I wasn't good enough. You know, I'm not built like all those other guys who can do this. You're not strong enough. And I put this down to being in a better mindset, into a better space mentally, is that I didn't quit or spiral or rip myself apart with self-loathing, because those moments where I used to spiral and break down, I have broken through. I no longer have this toxic relationship to be absolutely amazing and 100% on track and perfect, the perfect actor, male specimen, you know, the perfect I can be, the most perfect I can be. Because on the occasions where I'm inside my own head, I've definitely punished myself to last me a lifetime that I just don't want to go through that anymore, and I'll just go past it. And it's not out of complacency, it's grace and radical ownership. And there was a time I looked in the mirror and I said, yep, you slipped, but you don't stop, you keep going. And this comes back to the 5-second rule, where one physical, actionable step can make all the difference, from the people who change their lives and the people who stay stuck using perfection as a pitfall of how they can ever achieve their goals. So it was my choice. Am I going to let this define me, or am I going to take one more step? And I did. I took that step, and the intention and even the execution wasn't perfect. No way. But like the point of the 75 hard is not to be the most perfect specimen. It's just to build like a really structured and grounded identity, because even after failure, the more you believe in your ability to succeed increases, you will keep on going, you'll keep on going. So even when you show up after failing, you're rewriting your brain to say, hey, yeah, we slipped up, it happened, but it's not fatal. You got up, so you're not actually failing. You are no longer fragile. Did you really fail? And that was the mental shift that really changed everything. Because the thing is, you don't become disciplined by doing everything right. And it's always that small step. And I feel like every single effing video I make is just about taking this one goddamn step. One goddamn step. There's a quote by Martin Luther King that I just posted on the Discord, and it's just take one step up the stairs. Even if you can't see the stop, just take one step and you'll finally get there. Because we rise and we recalibrate and we will become better. And I'm not saying that in like a facetious idealization, you know, of what I do online to help other people just to self-gratify myself. Does that make sense? Like these videos, they are for my own propriety, my own vanity. They are for my own vanity. And I've looked back on them and I'm so humbled at how much I trust myself this time. I think what the 75 Hard really showed me is that it wasn't the gaps in my schedule, it was the cracks in my identity. Like I said, my mental integrity. Who I say versus who I actually show up for myself. And that was a war. That was a real war. Not even like in the gym for 100 pull-ups, 150 to 200 crunches. It was the moments when no one was watching and I was by myself. And the wildest part was I didn't even realize like how fragmented I was. I knew I was broken. I knew I was trying to heal. This is the whole point of the journey. But those scars, those cracks went deep. And the integration of therapy has helped, and mindfulness and physical activity, and just, trying to find the best practices, I guess, for myself, for my individual lifestyle, because I can't keep reaching for alcohol or sugar or other people or social media for validation or to get those hits of dopamine. Because when you strip that all away, when you move those distractions, all that is left is you. And in the beginning, I did not like the me I was left with. I did not like it. I felt like I was a walking contradiction, telling people stay focused, stay disciplined, and yet I was barely hanging on. Like every night I felt like I was white knuckling my way through, like, do I have any integrity left? The private voice in your head, saying, you can do it later, one more cheat meal, start Monday, go live tomorrow, just work tomorrow, just read tomorrow. Everything was tomorrow. This is a Tony Robbins quote now that I'm completely stealing, but if you live in alignment with your values, you will be free. And I'm finding like my values can change at the flip of a dime because, the universe, life changes. I completely lost track of who I was becoming, and it's so easy to fall into that mindset. It's so easy to fall into that lifestyle. I was becoming such a... Camera turned off, but it's kind of cognitive dissonance. I guess what psychologists called, ego depletion, where it drains your willpower. It drains your willpower, kills it, and it's exhausting. Over the last 75 days, I started to close that gap, step by step, up those stairs, or down the stairs. If you've read Silver Flames, I am Nesta. I'm in my Nesta era going down 10,000 flights of stairs. But by becoming perfect, or I wasn't becoming perfect, should I say, I was becoming honest. Becoming what I consider to be a flawed version of myself. And that's what everyone's going to have to see me to be. And it's fine for me to say I'm struggling, and I'm going to get past it. And that's where my integrity really started. When I was in the shit, and I still got through it. And I found a law in stillness for self-respect, because it looks like turning off the noise and staying in the silence and feeling that discomfort that I've spent years avoiding. And it was terrifying hearing my own thoughts very, very clearly and sitting with them. What I say is I sit in a circle. It's what I say to my therapist. I'm sitting with my emotions and my thoughts, and I'm trying to pinpoint, what's going with what and how to get through it. And you have to get better, and you need to build habits and routines and boundaries and simple check-ins, gentle check-ins with yourself, and then honest, accountable reflections. What else can I even talk about? My body, it's a temple, except after 7 p.m. because then it's just closed and I get to go. But in all seriousness, I've never felt stronger. Not since, I'd say, my late 20s, back in COVID, when the gym was all we really had. But the difference back then and now is I tried to escape, and I realized that my whole life I've tried to escape in the gym, and it's not so much about the mirror anymore. Well, that's a really hard thing to say with my narcissism, but there's a message I'm saying to myself every day, that I'm worth this effort more than the selfie I'm going to take and the thirst traps I'm going to do. Because I like doing them, I do. But like, if you remember back in the early 2020, everything was thirst traps of me Jason Derulo, Savage Love, you know, my hips have never worked the same since. But there are physical triggers, especially with like the chemicals, the neurochemical changes in the brain. Serotonin, oxytocin, endorphins. But I'm really trying to work on that neuroplasticity, which is basically trying to reshape your brain, rewire it, because you can become better at handling stress and be more resilient. And this all just comes from the daily decisions that you show up. Even when no one else would, even if no one else saw what you were doing. As long as you know that you're doing something. Every squat, every deadlift, I haven't done deadlifts in ages. But every single ugly grunt is really just becoming a statement for your self-respect. Because you are becoming more grounded. Me. And it's not so much about getting shredded for Instagram, but it's about connecting with my body and my identity again. Now, in saying that hypocrisy, I do want to be shredded and look amazing naked just because you don't see how below average I actually am. But for so long it felt split and torn between what I thought I had to be and what I actually valued. And this comes down a lot to my masculine and feminine side and what I thought I needed to portray. I hope that was recording. Now my diet is another big thing that I do want to talk about actually, because clean eating and the food I eat is a window to my emotional landscape, really anyone's. So essentially what you put into your body is going to fuel everything. And what can I say? If you understand your relationship with yourself and food, you know, it's down to your food. And this time around I decided to go into ketosis, and I have to say it's one of the best decisions I've ever made in the past 2 years. Not because of like the focus and the energy levels, because it told me a lot about my impulses, and I shifted how much I was actually using food to compensate, and I was overindulging and trying to regulate my emotions through eating. And as someone with body dysmorphia and eating disorders, you know, I was doing it out of loneliness and boredom and stress and celebration. And ketosis was like shifting my neurochemistry, you know, where I was fueling more and I was having like a suppressed appetite, and I felt so much sharper and more in control over my life is what I'm trying to say. And I didn't have as much cravings as what I thought, because someone with me who's suffered and struggled with binge eating, and it was compulsive behavior the whole daily life, and then having clarity, it felt a lot like freedom, because I suddenly wasn't at the mercy of my cravings. I wasn't constantly chasing the next dopamine hit that I couldn't get from alcohol or from people or from whatever online. And whatever someone takes, whatever someone chases, what I'm trying to say. I was nourishing my body and connecting with what I was consuming again. And when you think about it, like, habits are nothing more than behavioral loops and triggers and rewards. And when you interrupt that, you have to sit with that discomfort until you can rewire yourself. And you break then down that addiction. And that's essentially what ketosis really is. You know, it helps you with the underlying cravings and hunger and emotions that are there. And I used to always avoid those and that silence. And now, you know, in these quiet moments when, you know, I'm craving, I walk, I journal, I breathe, I exercise, I do something for me other than trying to sedate or regulate my emotions in a harmful way. I think sedate is actually a better word. Regulate isn't, because I'm still trying to regulate my emotions. I'm not craving food as much. Sweet treats. I'm not wanting to drown in sugars and foods and fats and takeaways. And I'm really craving, it's weird to say after food, a certain form of connection. And now there's a relief, you know, that I think I was really craving myself and now that I'm removing those comfort foods, and I'm finding comfort in discipline and activity. And I think that's where, you know, the transformation really started for me. When I wasn't trying to develop the six-pack, when I was trying to develop the self-respect, and being real, like the hardest part of the day wasn't the workouts at all. It wasn't saying no to the cravings. It was actually that silence that I had to sit with. Because it hits different when you're not on a journey like this, and when you remove all your distractions and your dopamine sources and your coping mechanisms, when they're all gone and all you're left is with yourself, ooh, that's hard. And your voice gets really loud, and that voice was brutal to me sometimes. Like sometimes I'd finish the second workout, check everything off, and I'd hit the tasks, and then it would just be 10:30, and I'd felt like I hadn't done enough during the day. My day was done, and yet I wasn't finished because I hadn't done enough, I hadn't achieved enough, I wasn't good enough. I needed to do more. And that's how deeply wired I was into my own shame, deeply wired the shame was in me. And like, there's this thing called productivity guilt, and that's the feeling where, you know, are you focused on me? Yes. And that's the feeling where, you know, what am I trying to say? Where rest equals laziness. And if you're not grinding, you're failing. And you know, I had such a fragile sense of self-worth. And when you don't believe enough in yourself, or you try to do over the amount to compensate for this feeling, you do destroy yourself, and the math doesn't math for it. And at night, sometimes there is nothing left to do, and the guilt would just find a way to settle there. Because I think I'm not doing enough, and I don't deserve anything. That I'm definitely a fraud. The imposter syndrome was back howling late at night when I was tired, drained emotionally, physically gained through the day. It was a difficult process to get through. There wasn't enough time in the day, and feeling like I wasn't accomplishing everything. My solution for this was simple, almost too simple. I walked. A lot of the time, like even when I didn't want to journal, or like I just throw on a podcast, get out into the fresh air, into nature, just walk around the bridges. And this is what's known as bilateral stimulus. Just walking, just moving. Focusing or working on the hemispheres of our brain, you know, calming down the amygdala, which is part responsible for fear and emotional reactivity. It'll bring you back to your center. It's the same mechanism that, you know, you use in EMDRs. Say that 10 times fast. EMDR, but it's therapy for trauma. And it's me self-regulating, but not overcompensating. I was doing something very gentle and not detrimental to myself like I do with other stuff that I'd be trying to chase that dopamine hit from. I was really trying to listen to myself and not sedate my emotions. It's very hard to know what you have to do and do it. But when you shift gears, the challenge is being deeply physical and mental, and being able to reconnect with my purpose, like the acting for what is now. If I didn't want to be in this industry, I'm pretty sure I would have given up a long time ago. And I would have taken deals years ago, recently, that probably would have made me quite stable in like financial and social, but always taking the step back and saying, this isn't the correct deal for myself. This isn't how I want to represent myself. It's not right for me. And there is a difference between success and significance, and I'm trying to build, you know, something. I really don't know what, but I just want to contribute to other people. And it's really hard because somewhere in the last 75 days, you know, I've been starting to see things a lot clearer. I really just want to help with what I know, like getting to teach classes here to people, you know, are not just hearing me. I'm able to actually give something to them that they can take away for their own craft. It's amazing giving that language to other people. And what I'm learning for theatre and for film and for being in the industry and being behind the camera and just doing stuff myself, I am so glad that I still have this drive and this purpose for it. I think the real gift that I've been given in my life is storytelling. And that's what acting is. It's a mirror. It's a bridge between inner and outer worlds. And even if I never get booked for all the big gigs, even if I never win awards, but someone hears what I say and feel less alone, then I'll feel good. I said something similar in an acting interview for like one of the colleges, and I'm pretty sure that was the line that they just said, he's not interested. But I do want to make the transparency that I do want to push myself and be an amazing performer and actor, and be a very successful actor. But if what I'm doing right now as I'm growing is just for one person, so be it. Hopefully someone will see it down the line and be like, we can trust him, he's going to work. And this, it really gives me permission to explore, and that's something that I'm really learning now. Something that I never thought I'd be saying is that I'm scared and yet not scared of the future anymore. I'm more accepting of it. I don't know what's happening. I don't have anything figured out. Like, I don't. Financially, I'm nowhere near where I want it to be. I've withdrawn from a lot, and spiritually, I'm still searching. But I feel awake. And I think that's everything right now, because I think fear feeds off avoidance, and the more you avoid it, the more power fear gains. And when you look fear in the eye and say, you don't hold power over me anymore, it's going to shrink. And I think that's what the last 75 days, this time around, has properly taught me. There's a power in awareness, and there is an awareness in freedom, and just having that choice. There's this thing like exposure therapy, you know, put yourself into a state of fear until like your body learns that it's safe. And I've been doing that in my life. I've been more open, being more aware. And I've stopped reaching now that I'm aware. I've stopped reacting and started responding a lot more. And that was a big mental shift. Big mental shift. Because I'm moving from fear to awareness. I'm moving from this sense of chaos and autopilot to clarity. Like, if you told me this time last year I'd be sitting healthier, emotionally sober, I would have laughed you in the face, because last year I was in such a dark place. I don't say that for drama. I was bad. I say that because maybe someone needs to hear it. And I want you to know you can come back from the edge. You can pull yourself out of that pit. And you can feel like giving up right now and still choose one more time. I didn't want to grow. I just wanted to be done. I just wanted my life to crumble around me, so I had an excuse to say, see, it wasn't never meant to work out for me. I'm a dime a dozen pop. I didn't want to take responsibility. And that's not how healing works, because healing is messy and it's so unsexy, and it's a choice every goddamn day. And that's what 75 Hard has been for me. I don't say a resurrection, especially since, you know, we're coming up to Easter. 3 days, whatever. Easter bunny. One of my favorite quotes though is, we have the ability to come from nothing into someone. That's by David Goggins, stealing another quote. But you can become the person you're meant to be, even facing the regret, the fear, the cringe, the person you don't want to be. And when I look back at the person I used to be and who I am now, I am so happy that I chose growth over comfort. And I gave myself that grace. I think that's where I'm going to leave this, because I don't know how long I've gone on for. Jesus, 12 minutes. Plus, actually, let me say, you don't have to be fearless. You don't have to keep on moving forward without having it all figured out. You can keep going. And if you're in a dark place, don't give up. Drink the water, go for a walk, and do one hard thing today that will make your life better tomorrow. And then tomorrow, do it again, and again, and again, and again. Take that one step, because you are not as lost as you think. You are just in the middle of your story. And your next chapter, whatever it is waiting for you. I'm not going to pretend I've made it, and that I've cracked the code, and that I know what discipline is, and I'm never going to lose it. I'm still learning, I'm still failing, I'm still sitting with my shadow and learning to love it. But I am different. And I'm more aware, and most importantly, I'm very open with myself. If there's anything I want you to take away from this, you're not broken because you're struggling. You're human. And you're not behind. You're right on time for your life. Discipline isn't about chasing the ideal version. It's about that one step again and again to become that person who you are under all that noise and all that shame and all that guilt. And if you're trying, listening, reflecting, that's resilience. Confidence isn't the belief that you'll succeed. It's just the willingness to try. And that's Mel Robbins. I'm just stealing all the quotes. If you followed me throughout the 75 days, thank you so much for witnessing this, for holding space for me, being flawed, being probably too emotional. And if you're just finding this, welcome. You're not late. You're exactly when you're meant to be, when you're meant to arrive. So, take a step forward. Not for me, for you. But I do ask you to like this video, comment, subscribe, or just just comment still here. Nothing more to say. I hope you have a good day and the day you deserve. Hey, this is Stuart.